everyone, it's Mary, and today I will be sharing with you my August wrap-up. And I am very happy because August was a great reading month for me. I read 4 books, which actually it's not that much, but the quality of it, it's important, I feel. And realistically, with the things that I do in my free time as well as the time that I spend working, I am pretty happy with an average of 3-4 books a month. So I'm happy because all the books that I read this month I really enjoyed. Let's start talking about the books. I'm going to start with the book with the lowest rating, which was What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. The book basically talks about the author enjoying running and how this activity that accompanied him for basically his whole life has shaped his own being, how it reflected on his writing as well, his health, and both mental and physical. So I think it was interesting, it was relatable. A lot of his reflections were very relatable, I believe, especially in the first half of the book. But he did come out as a little bit pretentious and not in a very endearing way. It also did get a little bit repetitive in points, not in a tedious way, because the writing was very easy and it just flowed very smoothly, so it was not, hard to read, and it's also quite a short book. But like, I got the main points that he was trying to get across. So personally, I think someone that enjoys running and writing, why not, would probably enjoy this book a lot more than I did. So I definitely recommend the book if you enjoy running, but even if you don't, it was an interesting book. A solid 3-star read for me. The next 2 books were my 4-star reads of the month, and the first one that I finished actually is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and this I took with me on holiday. You cannot see, but this book is quite battered now because, taking it with me to the seaside, it got a little bit damp and, there was sand everywhere. I was kind of a little bit sad to be, reading the book, but at the same time I enjoy, living my books. So I'm a little bit on the fence here. I don't know what to think. To keep a book just pristine or just, get it a little bit battered because it means that I really lived with the book. So anyway, I think pretty much everyone knows the story, but for the sake of, of a wrap-up, I'm just going to say that this book is set in the 1920s in New York, and it talks about this rich person named Gatsby that throws big parties, that has probably a troubled past, but a mysterious one, so nobody knows exactly where he comes from. There is this fascination for this kind of character. The protagonist of the novel is actually not Gatsby, but Nick, who is the one that really narrates the events, and he happens to be a neighbor of Gatsby. So what I liked about this book is really the atmosphere that it creates, and I really am sad that I watched the movie before reading the book. I watched the movie when it came out. Images of the movie are just very clear in my mind, and I could not see anyone but Leonardo DiCaprio being Gatsby, which I don't mind, of course, but I would have loved to just have been transported in this era by actually the book itself. Because what I think this book does really well is creating the right atmosphere, and it's really on point with everything actually, because not only it really builds around you what it meant to be living in the 20s, what it meant to be, of course, young and careless, but also the relationships between people were just so well constructed that it was a joy to read. So I feel like this book could get even better on a second read or on a third read. I find myself, when I finish a book, to be wanting to reread it so that I can feel something else. I feel like one reading is not enough, and I don't know why I have this sensation lately. I don't know if it is because I don't pay that much attention, that I'm not that concentrated on what I'm reading, but I don't feel like I'm reading fast, or I don't know, guys, but I feel like I want to reread this book, and I wish I could unwatch the movie as well. But anyway, 4 out of 5 stars. would definitely recommend. It is a great classic. Another book that I read and that I rated 4 stars is Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. This book was so endearing. Let's just briefly touch upon the plot. The chapters of the book are divided into the months of the year, and every chapter name is a traditional Mexican recipe. You have the ingredients in this page, and then you have the preparation, which is basically intertwined with the story itself. And the story talks about Tita, and it's set in the 1800s in Mexico, of course, and basically starts with saying that Tita was born on the kitchen table while her mother was cutting onions. So when she was born, she was crying so much that she basically left a lake of tears all over the kitchen floor, and when the tears dried, they could save the salt of the tears to cook afterwards for a long time. So this is the premise of the book, and it talks about Tita and how she falls in love with someone she's not supposed to be falling in love with. I really loved this book. It was not perfect, but it was soft and raw at the same time. It was like sentimental and cruel as well. I love the importance that it gives to, you know, preparing food, to cooking, and how this really affects life. The Italian culture being very tied with cooking and just food in general. I really get what this was trying to say, you know, how traditions and how the kitchen and cooking really participates in life events and determines life events. It's something that is very familiar to me, even though, you know, I'm not Mexican. The images that it provides, the colors of the ingredients of the food, it just really brings out the Mexican atmosphere. It's both colorful and dark at the same time. It went places that I was not expecting. I know that this is magical realism, so it basically makes sense, but yeah, sometimes I was not expecting it to go there, you know. I feel like delicious is the right word to describe this novel. This is one of those stories that will resonate with you for a very long time. I enjoyed myself so much while reading it. I was very compelled to know where the story was going, and also I really enjoyed watching the movie as well. I would definitely recommend this book to you. Perfect for a summer read and just a lot of fun. The last book that I'm going to talk about is one that I rated 5 stars. And I didn't even realize that this was in my 5-star reading prediction video that I shared with you a couple of months ago. And I fulfilled my wish to be giving this book 5 star, and it was Days Without End by Sebastian. I completely adored this book. I felt like it was a solid 4-star read for like basically most of the time. When I got towards the end, I had no doubt I had to give this book 5 stars. This talks about 2 boys joining the US Army in the 1850s. So it talks about them going to war, to the Civil War, the Indian War, how they are kind of caught up in this train of events that they participate in, but they question as well. They fall in love when they are very young. And it is described as in such a natural and beautiful way that was very tender, and they basically decide to adopt an Indian girl, and the story just goes from there. There are a lot of war scenes, and it is written in a very lyrical way, which was a little bit hard for me, especially in the beginning, to just get into this kind of writing style, because I'm not a native speaker. I felt that I had to concentrate to, you know, not lose anything. I wanted to be able to grasp everything about the story, about the descriptions. So at first it was a little bit hard for me, which meant that I had to slow down a little bit and I could not read in my usual pace. But getting past that was something that I achieved and that I felt very proud of. I mean, just in a very personal way. Aside from the story, and the events, which is also extremely good, the writing style is just something that hit me so hard that when I was actually finishing the book, it was just a point towards the end and something was happening that was not that sad, but the way in which was written just made me tear up, which is something that didn't happen to me in a very, very long time, and I was surprised by it. I was not expecting to cry, for the way in which the language is just so beautiful as something that is really emotional to me. And yeah, I just feel like this book should be read by anybody, and I would just recommend this book to anyone. So there's that. And this was it for my August wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed, and of course please let me know if you read any of the books that I mentioned, and just let's chat about them in the comments down below. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!